It's 2:47 a.m. The house is silent. Your partner is breathing slowly beside you somewhere far off in dreamless sleep, and you're lying there completely still on the outside while inside your skull a single thought just won't let go. You've already turned it over 100 times tonight, the same sentence, the same scenario, the same unanswered question, looping back to where it started like a song stuck on repeat. You tell yourself, asterisk enough, just let it go. And for about 4 seconds, it actually works. Then it's back, slightly rephrased, slightly more urgent, as if your mind discovered a new angle it absolutely has to check. This isn't really thinking. Thinking implies you're moving towards something, a decision, an answer, a resolution. This is something else, a loop. The same mental territory walked over and over without ever arriving anywhere new. If you've lived this, you already know the strange exhaustion of it. You're not solving anything, you're not learning anything. And yet some part of your brain insists on continuing, as if stopping the loop would mean missing something critical. Something that, if left unchecked, could turn into a real problem. Most people assume this happens because they're undisciplined, too anxious, not strong enough to just stop thinking about it. So they try harder to push the thought away, which, if you've ever attempted it, tends to make the loop louder, not quieter. But here's a question almost nobody asks. What if the loop isn't a failure of self-control at all? What if it's something far more deliberate? A process your brain is running on purpose, convinced, for reasons that have nothing to do with logic, that stopping would be dangerous? That reframes everything. Because a habit you can't break through willpower is one thing. An asterisk survival mechanism asterisk running exactly as designed is something else entirely. So here's where this documentary begins. If your brain keeps circling the same thought long after circling stopped being useful, what is it actually trying to accomplish? To answer that, you have to understand something most people never learn about their own mind. Your brain isn't a recording device passively logging what happens to you. It's a prediction machine, constantly forecasting what's about to happen next, then comparing that forecast against reality. This is called predictive processing, and it changes everything about how thoughts actually work. Your brain doesn't wait for the world to unfold and then react. It builds a model in advance, based on past experience, and uses that model to anticipate what's coming, often before you're even consciously aware of it. Walking down familiar stairs, recognizing a friend's voice in a crowded room, finishing someone's sentence in your head, all of it runs on prediction, happening so fast and so automatically you rarely notice it's happening at all. Think of it like a weather forecaster who never stops working. Not someone checking the sky once and calling it done, but a system constantly updating, constantly comparing this morning's actual conditions against yesterday's prediction, adjusting the model in real time. Most days, the forecast and reality match closely enough that nothing stands out. But when they don't match, when something unexpected happens, your brain registers a mismatch. Scientists call this a prediction error. A prediction error isn't a flaw in the system, it's the system working exactly as intended. It's your brain's way of flagging, asterisk. Something here doesn't fit what I expected. Pay attention. Under normal circumstances, this is useful. It's how you learn, how you adapt, how you update your understanding of the world when reality surprises you. But here's where it gets personal. When your brain encounters a prediction error tied to something emotionally significant, a relationship uncertainty, a health scare, a decision with consequences you can't fully see, it doesn't just note the mismatch and move on. It treats the gap as unfinished business. Something that needs resolving before the forecast can be trusted again. And an unresolved forecast to a brain built for survival doesn't feel like a minor inconvenience. It feels like exposure, like walking into unfamiliar terrain without a map. So your mind does what prediction machines do when the model breaks down. It keeps running simulations, searching for the missing piece that would make the forecast solid again, which raises an uncomfortable question. What happens when that missing piece doesn't actually exist? That question, what happens when the missing piece doesn't exist, turns out to be at the heart of almost every chronic thought loop, because there's a specific condition that pushes the brain's prediction system into overdrive. And it isn't danger exactly. It's something subtler and in many ways more relentless. Uncertainty. Not knowing how something will turn out. Not being able to close the loop with a definitive answer. Living inside an open question with no clear resolution in sight. For a brain wired to predict and prepare, uncertainty doesn't feel neutral. It registers as a threat in itself, not because something bad has necessarily happened, but because something bad could happen, and the model has no reliable forecast to offer. The brain interprets that gap as risk, and where most of us assume fear requires an actual danger to attach itself to, the nervous system is often perfectly content being afraid of the not knowing alone. This is what researchers call intolerance of uncertainty, and it explains why anxious thinking so rarely stays attached to one specific problem. The mind isn't only worried about the thing it keeps circling, it's worried about everything the uncertainty around that thing implies. The loop expands because the prediction system keeps running new simulations, searching for any scenario that might reduce the gap between what it knows and what it needs to know to feel safe. And somewhere inside this process, a structure most people have never heard of becomes quietly central. Deeper in the brain than the amygdala, sitting just above it like a silent sentinel, is a region called the Bed Nucleus of the Stria Terminalis, the BNST. While the amygdala responds to specific immediate threats, a loud noise, a sudden movement, the BNST is activated by something altogether different: prolonged anticipation, chronic worry, the kind of background dread that has no clear trigger and no obvious endpoint. Unlike a fear response that spikes and fades, BNST activation sustains itself. It keeps the brain in a state of low-level readiness, running simulations quietly in the background, maintaining vigilance long after the original stressor has passed or even disappeared. This is one reason chronic worry can feel so different from ordinary fear. It doesn't arrive in a wave and recede, it hums. So the loop continues, not because your mind is undisciplined, but because a deep survival structure is doing exactly what it evolved to do, keeping the forecast engine running until the uncertainty resolves. But what happens when it never does? Here's something that might reframe everything you thought you understood about your own mind. The thoughts that keep returning at night, the mental replaying of conversations, the quiet rehearsal of scenarios that haven't happened yet. Most of that isn't happening because something is wrong with you. It's happening because a specific network inside your brain switches on the moment you stop doing something else. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. It's a constellation of interconnected brain regions that activate during rest, during mind wandering, during any moment when your attention isn't locked onto an external task. For a long time, researchers assumed this network was essentially idle. Background noise, the brain at standby. What they discovered instead was genuinely surprising. The default mode network isn't resting at all. It's working. Specifically, it's running simulations, mental rehearsals of the future, reconstructions of the past, imaginative projections of how things might unfold. Think of it as an internal film studio that never closes. The moment the external world stops demanding your attention, the studio starts producing scenarios, possibilities, outcomes. For most people, much of this activity goes unnoticed. Brief flickers of imagination that dissolve before they fully form. But for a nervous system already calibrated toward threat, already running the BNST's low hum of anticipatory vigilance, the default mode network doesn't produce neutral simulations. It produces threat simulations, worst cases, unresolved outcomes, conversations that went wrong and might again. This explains something deeply counterintuitive about overthinking. It gets worse precisely when you try to relax. Lying down, switching off the screen, sitting in silence. All of these remove the external task that was suppressing the default mode network's activity. The moment that suppression lifts, the studio opens and the prediction engine picks up exactly where it left off. But perhaps the most important insight of all is this: safe experiences don't automatically update the brain's threat predictions. You can have a genuinely good day, a calm evening, an absence of anything going wrong, and the prediction model can remain exactly as it was. This happens because the brain, under chronic stress, often attributes safety to luck, to circumstance, to temporary conditions, rather than updating its core forecast. The model stays primed for threat, waiting for the safety to run out. This means the loop isn't stubbornness, it isn't weakness. It's a prediction engine running on old data in a studio that never sleeps. So let's return to that moment, 2:47 a.m. The same thought circling again. What you know now that you didn't know then is that nothing unusual was happening inside your mind. Nothing broken, nothing failing. A prediction engine was running simulations because it had learned through real experience that uncertainty requires vigilance. A deep survival structure was sustaining that vigilance because it hadn't yet received enough consistent evidence to stand down. And the moment the external world went quiet, an internal studio opened and kept the process running exactly as it was designed to do. That is not a malfunction, that is a nervous system following an outdated strategy with extraordinary loyalty. This reframe matters more than it might initially seem. When you believe the loop is a personal failure, a sign of weakness, of poor self-control, of a mind that simply refuses to cooperate, the natural response is to fight it, to push harder, to demand that it stop. And as you've likely already discovered, fighting a prediction engine doesn't update it. It just adds another layer of tension to a system already running too hot. But when you understand the loop as a learned survival response, one that made complete sense in a harder, more uncertain season of your life, something shifts. Not the loop itself, not immediately, but your relationship to it. The meaning changes, and meaning, it turns out, is one of the few things that can actually begin to influence what the brain chooses to keep predicting. Your brain was never trying to make your life harder. It was trying to protect you using the best model it had built from everything you'd lived through. The problem was never the protection. It was that the model stopped reflecting the present, and no one told it to update. You now understand something most people spend years trying to explain away rather than actually comprehend. The loop has a mechanism. The mechanism has a history. And anything with a history can, with the right conditions and enough consistent new experience, begin to tell a different story. That question of conditions, of what actually allows the brain to update a prediction it's been running for years, is exactly where we go next. Because understanding why the loop exists is one thing. Understanding what the nervous system actually needs in order to let it go is something else entirely. And the answer, as it turns out, begins not in the mind, but somewhere much closer to the body than most people ever think to look.